Welcome to One-on-One, the Daily Items weekly digital program featuring Susquehanna Valley newsmakers interviewed by Daily Item reporters. Today's guest is Americus Hose Company President Jerome Alex, interviewed by reporter Francis Scarcella.
At Sunbury Motors Kia, SMC stands for satisfying more customers and selling more cars.
Get terrific savings on 2019 models like the 2019 Kia Optima, the 2019 Kia Forte, the 2019 Kia Sorento, and you can expect Kia's industry-leading 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Francis Scarcella, and today we're being joined with the Americus Hose Company President, Jerome Alex. You've had many hats throughout this community, and one of them right now is the President of the Americus Hose Company, which recently just celebrated 125 years in service. So that's an accomplishment in itself, and I know you guys have been planning for a year to make this whole thing possible. So tell us a little bit about the history of the Americus Hose Company.
Wow, the Americus Hose Company. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Francis, and also it's even more of a pleasure to be able to serve as president of the Americus. The Americus incorporated in 1893. November 9th, 1893 is our actual date of incorporation. Now, it started a little bit before that. We went by a couple names. The first one was we went by the name of the number one's Juniors, and that was affiliated by a group of individuals that wanted to get another fire company down in the Third Ward area, down by where the Americus is now in Linden Street area. And then they changed their name later on to the Third Ward Junior Hose Company number one. A few years later, that was like 1890. And then a few years later, of course, they incorporated and took the name Americus Hose Company. And they used the Americus because there's an Americus Social Club in Sunbury, and they took the name of the Americus Hose Company. And that started the ball rolling for the 125 years that we've been there so far.
And was back, obviously you've seen pictures, was where it is on Linden Street now obviously has grown and gone through construction, which we'll go over. But was it a much smaller place at that time?
Yes, it was a much smaller
place. Was there a social
place.
hall there then?
Yeah. And of course it was much smaller. It actually is on the original building, I believe, was on the corner of South River Avenue in Linden Street. That's where the original part of the building was, and then it expanded toward Front Street. And of course, those guys back in those days bought a lot of the property in the area in order to expand it. Our company has grown so much over the years.
There was no ambulance back then. It was just the hose company. And they had a fire truck in the whole.
No, they had a horse-drawn carriage, and actually even when I first joined in 1979, 1980, the kitchen area at that time was where the horse barn and the stable was at the company. Of course, once we went into the mechanized vehicles, of course, we did away with the horse and buggy, and but we kept the structure there and remodeled it over the years and expanded to what we have now. Our big remodeling was in 1972, and then we did another remodeling in 94 and 95. So we've gone through a lot of transitions over the 125 years.
Obviously, there's how many members does the Americas have right now?
We roughly have about 115 members, or 1,500 members.
1,500 members.
I'm sorry about that. 1,500 members.
And how many, you don't recall how many members originally there were in the Americas at that time?
No. Some of the records that we have from back then are very, we lost a lot of records. During the remodeling phases, different records were lost. and it's unfortunate. Some of the history was.
Do you still have some of the old records?
We
from
do.
it?
We do
Wow.
have some of the old records, but not some of the old records.
What kind of shape are they in?
Well, they're old.
They're old.
And
Yeah.
they need some work done to
Yeah,
them.
but I mean, isn't that kind of cool to go back and look and
It
see what
is.
they were doing back
It
then?
is.
How much was beer back then? Does it say on there?
No.
It doesn't give you a price. I was just curious on the prices.
No, probably a nickel.
Probably a nickel.
I don't know.
Well, that's one of the things with the fire companies, and is that all of that stuff is cheaper. Food, alcohol.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, to an extent, it's cheaper. We try to keep the cost down for the membership. We are a club, along with being part of the Sunbury Fire Department. So we are our own entity. We raise our own money either through donations or sales at the bar. We're also fortunate enough to have the ambulance service.
when did the ambulance service start?
Actually, it started around 1924, and we went into having a first aid unit that a group of guys got together, and they saw a need in the community of helping the Mary Packard Hospital, which is where the former middle school currently is. And at that hospital, they started a first aid team that would go out and help the people in the community. And in 1927, we bought our first ambulance. It was a Packard ambulance, and it was basically stationed up at the hospital to respond to emergencies. We were the first ambulance service in the area, and we covered a massive area. We covered everywhere. And if you think about Sunbury and you think about the Herndon area, Lower Augusta, Upper Augusta, the Island, which is part of Upper Augusta, the borough of Northumberland, Point Township, across the river in Snyder County. We covered the whole area with our ambulances when we first started out. And of course, then those communities started developing their own ambulance services. But we were still the primary ambulance service for a vast majority of the area.
How does that work now there with other ambulance? Do you guys have certain coverage areas that you're allowed to
We
go,
do.
or you can go anywhere,
We do.
or is it like regulated?
The government changed the rules a number of years ago, and each municipality has to identify a primary ambulance service source for their community. Obviously, we're the primary ambulance source for Sunbury and several other areas around here. And what that means is that when an emergency call comes in, 911 center then dispatches us. Now, obviously at the first due ambulance services, your primary service is not available. Then it goes to the next closest ambulance service that's available. So we cover, and everybody picks up the pace for everyone else. There are times that our ambulances, we have 3 trucks on during the day. We have a southern truck that's located down in Dalmatia.
Well, that's what I was just going to bring up, because
Yeah.
being this area so big and far, if something happens in the middle of nowhere out there and
Right.
you're from Sunbury,
Yeah.
you guys have a substation down there.
Yeah, we have
Is
a,
that manned all day? Is there somebody there all day?
From 7 to, I believe, 11 at night. We have a crew down there. And then we also have 2 full-time ambulances in Sunbury here, based at our station. That covers basically this whole area. So there are times that our ambulances may all be out. If both our ambulances are out, then what we do is we forward stage the southern truck up here to cover the area. And there are times that Dauntless or Area or whoever is available needs to come over and cover our area, as we do them. There's a lot of times we run to Northumberland or Selinsgrove or even into Shamokin we go, depending on what the situation is.
And you are one of the few fire companies that have a ladder truck, is that correct?
Yeah, we're the only ladder truck in Sunbury anymore. We have a 100-foot platform aerial truck that this is the second one we had. The first one we had was purchased in 1979. And then this one we purchased in 1999.
So you guys are always looking to upgrade that,
Oh,
right?
well, we're going on 20 years. So, yeah.
How long do they usually last?
Well, they can last a long time, or they can last a shorter period of time, depending on how hard they're used and the maintenance that's done on them. Now, we're very fortunate. We use our truck a lot. It responds to a wide area for calls. And we spend a lot of money on maintenance.
When an area needs a a ladder truck, you guys get the phone call as well?
Well, we don't get a phone call. There's no phone calls anymore. It all goes to the 911 center. And funny story about that. For the longest time, until about 1994, 95, all the ambulance calls used to come into our fire station. And I can still remember the number. And we had a red phone behind the bar, and that red phone was our ambulance phone. And at that time, everybody was volunteer. Now, volunteerism has kind of went to the wayward side, and our EMS staff are all paid. We don't have we have maybe one or two volunteers that do some community outreach when things are going on during the summer, but for the most part, everybody in the area is a paid ambulance service. There's very few volunteers anymore for EMS.
Which we'll get into, the volunteerism and the celebration that happened not so long ago, and I know there was a lot of members that were there, so we'll be right back.
At Sunbury Motors Kia, SMC stands for satisfying more customers and selling more cars.
Get terrific savings on 2019 models like the 2019 Kia Optima, the 2019 Kia Forte, the 2019 Kia Sorento, and you can expect Kia's industry-leading 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty.
We're back with this week's edition of One on One. We're joined with Jerome Alex, president of the Americus Hose Company. Before we took the break, you had said that volunteerism is on a downward spiral, and I know that from covering various things here in the city that it is. And give us a little example of why that is, and what needs to be done in order to bring those numbers back up.
Boy, I'll tell you, I really don't know what the answer is to getting the numbers back up. Everybody works anymore. And most employers are not. It's a lot more difficult now for people to leave their jobs when there's an emergency. There are some employers that are still very receptive to that. But as we all know, that with the workforce being downgraded over the last 20 years, it's very difficult for an employer to allow a key employee, which usually a lot of times is a volunteer, to leave their job. And with the younger people, you don't have the younger people coming in to the volunteer system. You have younger people joining the fire stations because of the clubs, but not to join to be active in the fire service.
So it was kind of like I guess back in the day, so to speak, your grandfather was a volunteer, your dad was a volunteer, and
you
then you
became
became
a volunteer.
It's not like that
anymore. And I have two sons, and of course they're both members down there, but they've never been active in the fire service or the EMS service.
So at some point that kind of just stopped.
It just stopped. And quite honestly, it pretty much stopped everywhere. Central Pennsylvania is still really the biggest area for volunteer fire companies in the Commonwealth. In the same way with clubs, like we have. A lot of the other places, they may have volunteers and they may have a fire station, but they're supported by a tax base through their municipalities. They don't have a club. They don't have a fire company like you would see around here. Which is weird when you leave the area. I know when I go down to my brother's house in Lancaster, he lives close to a fire station, and it's a volunteer station, but all it is a building with fire trucks and ambulances. They don't have a social hall like you do here in Central Pennsylvania. And of course, everything works on a pager system, even here through your 911 centers. And so
when a call comes, they fly to that fire station.
They go through. A lot of them are there already.
Yeah.
They hang out, just like they do here in town. But they run their blue lights, go there, get in a fire truck or a rescue truck or whatever it is, and they go. And it's sad because it's been very rewarding over the years being a volunteer, both in fire and EMS. I was an EMT at one time. And then I left that. I got out of that and stayed more on the fire side and the rescue side, it's been a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of people, and we've done a lot of good for a lot of people.
So a lot of people at home that are watching this go to bed at night and think, they'd never think twice about the volunteers out there. So if something were to happen to anybody, they just automatically assume that the place is staffed, everybody's ready to go.
Yeah.
And on this and the back end of it, when something comes in, and I'll just bring this up as an example, a couple of weeks ago, a fire that occurred in Sunbury. I know that there was a little bit of panic about getting the guys together. It all worked out. They did get the people there quickly, and everybody did a great job. But they're the things that sometimes myself, people just take for granted.
That's true. The volunteer services depend a lot on mutual aid responses from other areas, from Shamokin, Norrie, Selinsgrove, Montour County. We depend a lot on mutual aid as well as they do. A lot of times our ladder truck will respond to Selinsgrove or Northumberland or to the coal region for a major fire. That's just the way it is anymore. And back in the day, you didn't have that. Sunbury was pretty much self-sustaining. It was very rare that we would have to call for a mutual aid back in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s. It was rare that you called for mutual aid. It had to be a major, major fire for that to occur. And basically it was because you needed more equipment there.
So with you showing up at a fire now and you see a lot of people say, oh my God, when they pull in, they see 70, 80 fire guys. That's a good sign to you. That's a great sign to you.
If you can get 78 firefighters at a fire scene, that is super.
Well, the prison fire. I mean, for example, prison fire.
There was a lot of people there. I mean, there was a lot of companies there.
Yeah. But that's kind of
alarms they went to there.
That was kind of a different situation, though, because it was the prison fire. So I think everybody wanted.
Yeah, it's because also they went to the number of alarms that they went to. They went to that because of water supply, for manpower, for equipment, for a lot of things.
Right.
Because of the size.
But for fire guys, it doesn't matter if it was the prison or
really
doesn't. It's a fire's a fire.
No, fire's a fire.
Well, I mean, obviously, all I can say is get out, volunteer, and I'm sure you guys take them all the time.
I wish we'd get a lot more volunteers out. I know the Sunbury Fire Department would appreciate it. And quite honestly, we have a pretty good fire department here in Sunbury. We're all a brotherhood. There's a lot of times that we bicker, just like family does.
But y'all go out and help at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, when the alarm rings, everybody's there to do the common goal of making sure we save lives and property and protect the community. And it's no more evident than when you have like a major natural disaster like a flood, where everybody comes together and they do a lot, or a major snowstorm, or some type of major event that goes on. Volunteerism is in the fire services is a great way to support your community, because quite honestly, if you didn't have a volunteer fire company, your taxes would be a lot higher. The closest paid company right now is Lewisburg, and as far as firefighter, that's not a full paid, from what I understand. Right. I think they still have a number of volunteers up there. Right. So, but their primary response is a paid station.
You were saying about everybody coming together, and I know you guys at the Americus during major events, flooding, major snowstorms, you guys feed the city workers when they come in. You guys will feed people when they come in just because they're out there working. You'll stay open late hours to make sure that they get something to eat. You respond to scenes with Gatorades and waters, all donated through. I mean, you help the police department just as much.
We try to be a very active company in the community. And I know back in 2011 when we had the flood, and they started forward staging a lot of the water rescue units. We actually closed the company and we set up a bunch of cots. Excuse me. And at that point, we had volunteers, water rescue volunteers that were staying there. And I know that when we have, if there's major outages or anything like that, we'll open up our company, and we have the capability of setting up cots and different things like that, and to make people safe and secure. So we try to be very active.
Do your part for the community. And with that said, now you celebrated 125 years.
125
so
years.
that happened, and just tell us about the weekend, how it was, how many people,
125 years, that's a long time.
It's a long time.
And, I don't think I'll see another 125 years. I'm hoping I see another 25 years, make it to the 150th, and that'll be great. Yeah. But over the years, we've had six fire chiefs. We're on our 7th right now. And 4 of them are no longer with us, and one of them that a lot of people actually 2 of them a lot of people probably know was Paul Miller, who was very active. He was a councilman and involved in the local banks and a lot of other things around in the city. And Barney Neff, Dick Neff, who was a councilman. He was also one of the chiefs out of the Americus. And of course, our most recent past chiefs, Gary Troop and Mike Rhodes, are, a lot of people know them as well. And our current chief, Paul Brown, he's actually the chief of the department right now.
And a lot of them came out to celebrate?
They all came out to celebrate the anniversary. We had probably about 150, 175 people show up Friday night, and it was great.
Closed the bar.
We closed it down. It was for members only. We had a nice celebration, a lot of fun talk, and being able to catch up on a lot of old people that we haven't seen for a while, and it was just a wonderful evening. Our committee did a great job. I can name a lot of the committee, and I know I'm going to miss somebody, so I apologize up front, like I did last night at the company meeting when I recognized everybody I could. Some of our key people was Tom Krieger and Wes Hare and Bob Hare, who is who actually runs our company. He's a full-time employee for us, who is a director of operations and basically runs the Americus, and thank God he does, because you can't run a multi-million-dollar operation anymore with volunteers. You just can't do it anymore. Not like it was back in the day.
Right.
Joel Wiest and drawing a blank on a lot of the other
countless
ones.
names. I mean,
but there's like 7 to 10 people that were involved in this, and they were some of the more key ones, along with Brad Hare. So a lot of work went into over the last year putting this together, and I think from what I understand and talking to a lot of people Friday night and after since then, I think we met the expectations of what people really want to see out of a 125-year anniversary, and I'm very pleased. And I'm very proud to say that I'm President of the Americus. I'm one of the 37 over the 125 years that was the president is the President of the Americus, and it's a very special and unique honor to be able to be that person.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and stop down the Americus. The food's always good.
Absolutely.
Go down and see Mr. Alex down here. Sign up, become a member, become a volunteer. We appreciate having you here today.
We have a lot of food, a lot of good drinks, and we welcome anybody to come in and enjoy our establishment. So please come down and visit us.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching One on One. Be sure to tune in next week for another edition.